Welcome to Type Tune Tint. I'm Tom Kranz.
Y100 free gate passes and handfuls of ride tickets for the Dade County Youth Fair. Coming up in just a second. Hang on.
That's the voice of Kid Curry, a Miami radio icon of the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
8 till 7, this Kid Curry. There's someone on the phone. Yowza.
Is this the kid?
Yes, it is.
He dominated Top 40 radio as a disc jockey, program director, and concert promoter for 30 years. Then, everything changed. At age 50, he got the answer to why his body had been showing signs of weakness for years. Today, Kim Curry has reinvented himself as an author and advocate for multiple sclerosis awareness. And I'm joined by Kim Curry from his newly acquired palatial estate in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm here in the cultural mecca of Union County, New Jersey, the town of Fanwood. In case you're wondering, we're like 23 miles southwest of Newark. We are in the New York metropolitan area, more or less. Kim, I really appreciate you joining me here. I just finished reading your book. First of all, good morning, and how's life in Fort Collins?
Well, as you said, just recently arrived within the last week. We have boxes everywhere. If you see workers walking around behind me somewhere, then don't be alarmed. It's a wonderful day here. We love Colorado. Northern Colorado is a beautiful place to be. So
you're a native of, you're from Colorado originally, right?
I grew up in Canyon City, Colorado, the home of the Colorado State Penitentiary.
I just finished reading Kim's book, Come Get Me, Mother, I'm Through. We'll explain the title in just a second here, but this book was published in like 2019, right? So we're talking 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. But this is like your complete life story. It's essentially an autobiography, and it's an amazing story to begin with. You started out life, I guess the first half of your life, let's just say for the sake of argument, as a bona fide real-life radio star in the Miami market, although you did have jobs in other places. In Miami, you worked at two different stations there where you were both an air personality, a DJ, and then a program director, but you did a lot of other things too. Just give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of what that was like in Miami.
Miami was a wonderful existence. When I was 22 years old, I was working at a radio station in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I said something on my air check that I had sent around the country. It was the Peter Frampton song, Baby, I Love Your Way, where the applause starts, and then he says, thank you. So on the tape, I thought if I say, hey, Peter, your zipper's open, and he says, thank you, it would be funny. So I started the song, hey, Peter, your zipper's open. He says, thank you. And that comment right there made Jerry Clifton in Miami say, I want that guy on my radio station. So I was 22 years old when I got hired to be on 96X in Miami. About a year later, I ended up on Y100 in Miami because Jerry was infamous at some of its contests. And he did one called Find Greg Austin in the Bermuda Triangle. And needless to say, when people got in their boats and started heading out to the Bermuda Triangle, the FCC said, no. So that was one of a variety of different contests he had done on 96X. So a year after I got there, the station was going through the legal processes to be shut down. So I got hired over at Y100 to work for Bill Tanner. And about 4 years after that, I was doing the morning show over at I-95. Then I left to go to San Antonio for a while. I went to Washington, D.C., up into Baltimore. But I spent 25 of my 33 years in Miami on the radio. I went back there to be a DJ in 1992. I left again for 2 years because my father had his legs amputated, and I wanted to come home and help my dad build his ramps and things. And then I went back down to Miami again for the third time as a jock, but a year later they made me the program director. And so from 1996 to 2005, I was the program director at Power 96 in Miami.
Okay, and so Power 96 still exists as Power 96, does it?
Yes, it does. It's still on the air.
And are they still doing the top 40 format?
No, they're into a old hip hop, what they call old school music now. So they're playing all the songs we played back when I was program director. They're playing them now. They're just rehashing the radio station.
What goes around comes around. And Y100, that was a competing station for Power 96, right?
Yes, it was. Those two stations, the primary stations in South Florida, 96X, which became Power 96, and Y100 were the two predominant radio stations down there for decades. And I worked on both of them. And that really was a weird thing to have to sew through my life because I went through contract negotiations, got sued, and things like that. But yeah, Miami is where I wanted to work, and and some people will tell you that the Miami markets radio in the 1970s was some of the best radio in America at the time.
And you were known as Kid Curry at the time, right?
Yes, sir.
It's 21 after 6. This is Kid Curry. Going to have continuous music in a bit. If you want to hear something, call me. Get the phone real close because I'm going to give away these Dade County Youth Fair tickets in just a bit.
Now, so when I went to search Kid Curry, I got a lot of entries for some cowboy or some Western dude named Kid Curry. And I said, what? And I was very confused. Is that how you got your name?
Here's what happened. It was the 1970s. I was going to my first full-time job, leaving Colorado, driving to my first full-time job in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was going to be on the radio at 10 o'clock at night. And I thought to myself, if Wolfman Jack can be Wolfman and the boogeyman can be the boogeyman, I can be Night Smoke.
Oh, so that's right.
I was going to go into Knoxville as Night Smoke. Wow. So when I drive up to the radio station, I walked up. This is so vivid in my memory. I walked up the stairs and I opened the door. There was a lady at the reception desk and a big guy behind her with a Hawaiian shirt on and curly hair. I reached out my hand to the receptionist and I said, hello, ma'am, I'm your new nighttime disc jockey. I'm Night Smoke. And the guy behind her said, well, if it isn't Kid Curry. I said, I hate that name. And he responded, well, then I won't sign your check.
So did he just make it up on the spot?
No, in the 1970s, there was a TV show called Kid Curry and Hannibal Hayes. It was a takeoff of the original Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
Oh, well, so there was a Western theme there someplace.
It was a Western theme, and it was a TV show, and the two characters were Kid Curry and Hannibal Hayes. So when I was in high school, all my friends used to make a joke, hey, it's Kid Curry.
Oh, Kim Curry, Kid Curry. I get it.
So I get to Knoxville and he says, it's Kid Curry. And I said, I hate that name. He's like, well, then I'm not signing your check. And I was like,
okay, Kid Curry's good, right?
And then if you go research hard enough, there's never been another Kid Curry in the radio business. It was
true.
Me. My style was a style that no one could really, they couldn't match because I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. So
well, that's good. Well, and your style, I mean, you're talking about the days when disc jockeys didn't just spin records. You did jokes, you did kind of, there was humor, there were contests. You produced concerts. I mean, you were like a bona fide, this reminds me of when I was in junior high school in Philadelphia. We had WFIL and WIBG. They were AM stations, top 40 competing stations, kind of like, just like your station. But those guys were like gods, High Lit and Joe Niagara. They made personal appearances. They signed autographs. They were like our celebrities. Well, and that sounds like what you kind of were in Miami too for quite a while.
When we were young, think about it. It was movie actors, TV stars, and radio people.
Yeah, pretty much.
We were the bottom of the totem pole, but even Ronald Reagan went from radio to TV and movies and things.
Right.
So we were entertainers, and you had to be good because everybody wanted to be in Miami on Y100. Everybody wanted Kid Curry's job.
Yeah, but you met and interviewed a lot of celebrities, some of whom became lifelong friends, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it or not. Behind me, there's a candelabra somewhere back there.
I see one yes, that white candle there, yeah.
My friend Gene Simmons gave me that for my first wedding gift.
Oh, so. The Gene Simmons of Kiss.
The Gene Simmons of Kiss. So,
oh, that's cool.
So I've got a lot of friends. Wyclef Jean of the Fugees is a personal friend. I even had a boy band for a while. My business partner Barry Richards and I had a boy band, and our lead singer was the illegitimate child of Tom Jones, and. It was crazy because we had this contest. I had come home to visit my parents in Colorado, and the local radio station here was doing a contest. They were putting together a boy band so that they could have the band with them at appearances, and the band could play, and it would just kind of enhance the appearance. And I thought, what a genius idea. I could do that in Miami. So I went to Miami. We shut down a mall, had auditions all day long. We find 5 little boys. I'm on the radio the next day, and one of my producers walks in and she throws these papers down in front of me. She says, do you know who that little boy was that we put in our band? I was like, no. And she starts going through and said, look at this. This is Judge Judy, who says this little boy is Tom Jones's son. But because it's 99.9990%, there was still that minuscule percent. So it was never legally qualified
Oh,
as his child. But
I see.
he was. So it really gave us notoriety. I'm sorry. I had a great
Interesting.
radio career, a lot of fun. I'll go on forever. You better stop me.
Well, that brings me to kind of my next question, which is between the traveling, between doing the shows, between doing events, between working God knows what kind of hours, being you wasn't just being it wasn't just a job, it was really a lifestyle, right?
It was
And it was
me.
a lifestyle that I think probably cost you in your personal life going along. Is that
It
accurate?
did. When I first got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, there's nothing like this in my family. My doctors were very concerned at how it happened. But because multiple sclerosis is a stress related disease, the doctor decided that because you've been Kid Curry, you've been on your whole life, your
Mm.
brain has never shut off. I think you've burned yourself out. And they think that the stress that I had been going through all my life, and I can tell you, you know as well as I do, real radio people bleed the biz.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And my dad was a radio guy, so it was in my blood. And I can tell you that as I'm explaining to her my life and all the things I've been doing forever, and I could kind of see what she was talking about, because you're right, I haven't ever shut off. Maybe I have hurt myself. And so it was her diagnosis that I had stressed myself into multiple sclerosis. And it was raging for 8 long years. It took me out of radio. I mean, everything changed.
So you were diagnosed in 2005, right?
At age 50, yes.
At age 50. So do you think you actually had it for many years before that, just undiagnosed?
Absolutely, because even in 5th grade, remember the presidential fitness test we all used to have to
Yeah,
take?
sure.
And you had to run like 300 yards or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I don't know, whatever. Well, I remember on that fitness test, and it didn't register till years later, I couldn't feel the bottom of my feet. It felt like the pads of my feet were gone. And I fell a couple of times, and I just got up and kept running. And then years later, I felt like maybe my arm curled up, just curled on me. And I thought maybe I'd been stung by a killer bee. At one point, I thought I'd been bitten by fire ants, because things kept happening. My eye would suddenly start to close. And so I didn't know what was going on.
This is while you're in high school or college?
This was all through my life. These little tiny
Really?
things happened, probably 10, 15 years apart, but they
Gotcha.
happened enough to where they stopped me enough to go, what was that?
But you never really checked it out until later in life?
No, until 2004, we were home here in Colorado. My wife and I and my kids were home visiting my mother. And my mother was the one who told my wife, there's something wrong with your husband's face. He looks funny. He's tense. He's not stopping. You need to get him checked out. So it was my mother who really told my wife that we needed to look in on this. And then the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis takes about 3 months or so, because they want to test everything to make sure it's not something else.
Sure. They want to do MRIs to check for lesions and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. And I had lesions in my brain, lesions in my neck.
Yeah.
It was pretty rampant for that.
All right. Before we get in deeply into the MS story, I want to get back to the title of your memoir. Come Get Me, Mother, I'm Through. So this has to do with a feature of your radio show, right? Called Bed Check. And tell us what Bed Check was and how this line ended up being the title of your book.
At the end of my radio show on many radio stations, starting at 96X, then on Y100, I did it in Washington, D.C. I just I would spend about an hour recording kids and then editing these little bits down to about a 3 or 4 minute segment. And I'd let them call in and they could harass their school. They could take a shot at their mom, at their brother. They'd say funny things.
So this was a call-in show? They would call into you?
Call-in little thing.
And then you edited them together.
That way, the last 10 minutes, the last 3 or 4 minutes of the show, the audience and me playing around, and I'm firing back, and they're laughing at me, and I'm laughing at them. And then at the end, when I was done, because the name was Kid Curry, I would just say, "Okay, show's over. Come get me, mother. I'm through." It just seemed natural to me, and it was the end of my show. And so as I was writing my memoir some 20 some years later, I thought that would be a good title. And it's funny because I still have people who harass me and send me tapes of them on bed check.
Oh, that's
They
funny.
recorded them on little cassettes when they were young, and they still have those cassettes. And then not one or two, I'm telling you about 10 maybe
Wow.
that I've gotten from people around the country.
Well,
because
when you know you're going to be on the radio, that's what you do. That's what my dad did when he knew I was on the radio. My dad recorded me at every step along the way, which was great. I came to appreciate it much later, not at the time, of course. You published it in 2019. When did you start writing it, and how long did it take you to do?
It took me about 2 years to write.
Okay.
When I first had the idea, I didn't know how to write or anything. I actually went to the Northern Colorado Writers Association here to try to find someone who would work along with me. And the former director of that association became my writing partner, my coach.
Hmm.
She wouldn't even talk to me for the first 6 months. She gave me books to read to learn how to write. One of them was something, The Cat Strikes Back, or something, and to teach you how to frame a story, how to write a story, how to have a theme, and then everything has to roll back to the theme. You have to write everything back to the post. And so then she finally sat down and talked to me, and I told her that I wanted to write my memoir and that I was going to go ahead and start. And I would write her pages after pages, and she would write me back and say, well, I need an answer to this and this. And so she kind of taught me how to do this over a 2-year period.
That's cool.
Then I released the book, and actually it was like number 9 on the Amazon broadcast list for over a month period. Howard Stern was number 1. I was number 9. So
cool. So there's lots and lots of detail in this book. I mean, lots of detail, dates, times, people's names. Were you taking notes while you were going along, or is this all stuff just from memory that you sat down and started writing?
I took all this out of my memory. And
Wow.
I've also had some friends who I'd go and I'd say, hey, listen, by the way, how did this happen?
Oh, okay.
It was important for me to tell the radio career. It was important for me to transition that career into what happened to me on the diagnosis and how everything changed. I was such a committed radio guy, and it was so strange to me that as soon as I got the diagnosis, radio disappeared.
Yeah.
It disappeared. All I could think about was, wait, I've got a chronic disease. What am I going to do now? I've got a wife. I've got family. What's going to happen to me?
Was there a grieving process in giving up your radio career after all those years, or not really?
That took years. I was angry. In fact, I was very upset that, you know how it is, man. I wanted my partners in radio to continue their lives. I wanted everybody to go on. That's why I left Power 96, because I wanted the station to not feel my pain. You guys are rolling. Don't worry about me. Keep going. I'm going to get out of here. You keep going. Well, those people disappeared. And I spent 3 or 4 years not hearing from anyone. It was like nobody. And it bothered me that people who I'd given my life to for so many years had just disappeared on me. And I was angry about not being Kid Curry, because when Kid Curry walked into a room, everybody paid attention.
Yeah.
But now when you're in a wheelchair, people walk away from the guy.
Well, or they pay attention for other reasons, I think, sometimes maybe.
There came a point, Tom, to where I finally decided the guy in the wheelchair gets the same attention as Kid Curry. So I'm just going to act like Kid Curry.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid. I was not afraid. I was disturbed by how people greeted me because I started off with a cane, then I went to crutches, then I ended up in the wheelchair. And each time people got further and further away from me. And it bothered me because nobody ever was away. People wanted to be with me.
Yeah.
So it really concerned me until the day when something clicked. And after my wife said, you've got to stop being so mad about being in that wheelchair, I thought, but wait a minute, the wheelchair makes me Kid Curry. I'm the guy people see when he walks in. So I'm the guy who's going to set the precedent when I say, I'm the first one to say hello. Hey,
Sure.
nice shirt. I like your kids, or kids and dogs like me because I'm at their height. So, I'm the entertainment, same way I used to be, but it took me a while to find that. And it hurt.
Yeah, I guess so. So now it's been this is your 20th year since you were diagnosed.
Yes. Sir.
Here's a really broad question that's impossible to answer. What has changed in your life and in your mind about being a person with MS over 20 years?
Tom, when I was first diagnosed, there were only like 4 MS drugs. I spent 8 years in decline. I mean, we registered 50 falls.
Mm.
I broke ribs, dislocated shoulders. One time, I laid on the floor of my wife's back office on the floor for an hour with a dislocated shoulder, nobody home,
Oh,
in
jeez.
total pain, couldn't figure out what to do. As soon as she came home, I'm screaming, and they had to end up getting me to the hospital. I mean, I was in terrible shape for 8 years.
Mm.
The doctor that I had that saved me, Dr. Alan Bowling, who writes books on multiple sclerosis, came to the realization that the Rebif medicine I was on, called Rebif, was not doing anything. It wasn't helping, it wasn't hurting, it was just doing nothing. So he changed my drugs to Copaxone. Now, here's how that happened. First of all, Tom, I'm a radio DJ, and I used to put my mom on the radio all the time, and my mom would have a cold, and she'd say, you make sure you take your vitamins. I said, Mother, you're dying of pneumonia. Don't tell me about vitamins. So my doctor said, here's what I want you to do. You're going to take Copaxone, and I want you to take 30,000 IUs of vitamin D every day.
Wow, Jesus.
Like, oh,
it's like a whole bottle, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, almost, man. And I laughed. I said, Doc, come on, vitamins don't do anything. Don't tell me that. So for 6 months, I only did the Copaxone and nothing changed. But the whole 6 months goes by, and the doctor's in my wife's ear telling him to take the vitamin D, tell him to take the vitamin D. So after 6 months of abuse, I finally said, okay, I'll take the vitamin D. 6 months later, after taking this massive amount of vitamin D, I stopped hearing the fingernails down the chalkboard that had been ringing in the back of my head for 8 years. Suddenly, something stopped. It all started to calm down. And I go in for my MRIs, and my lesions are not on fire. The lesions in my neck have calmed down. So the doctor surmised and had been researching this and had real belief that the medicine works better when you have vitamin D pushing your other organs or whatever it does. It just helps the medicine go into your system and helps it work better. And he's a real believer in vitamin D. And so I'm still taking massive amounts of vitamin D. I haven't changed my medicine regimen. I have been the same. I'm the same now that I was after 8 years. I've not gotten any worse, not gotten any better after the medicine change. I've learned to live like this. I lived on a ranch where I fixed horse fences. I had to, muck stalls. I had to paint things. I had to get up in my big John Deere tractor to move soil around. I had to mow and I've learned to live like this. And my doctors would prefer I don't get on my tractor the way I get on my tractor, but I got to live. So I have learned to live like this, and I am moving forward. So your
disease has not progressed in 8 years?
Not at all.
Really?
Not since.
Well, that must give hope to other MS patients, around the world. I mean, if that's a possibility that you're not going to get any worse, that's something that a lot of people can probably live with. Okay, this is my normal now. If it doesn't change, I can deal with that.
And that's what I'm doing. And I haven't changed my medicine at all. I'm still doing the same regimen. I still take 3 shots a week of Copaxone. I still take all the vitamin D. I've not gotten any worse, not gotten any better. I am in good shape, and I am very thankful for a very smart doctor.
Well, that's great. Really great. So you mentioned your wife a couple times. This is Elizabeth.
Yes.
She seems like you couldn't have done a lot of this without her. She seems like she's, according to the book anyway, she's been with you every step of the way. She's nagged you when you needed to be nagged, and she comforted you when you needed to be comforted. But she seems like your number one hero.
She's my caregiver full time. My wife was my date at the Grammys every year when I first met her. I mean,
is that right?
I had to go to the Grammys. I needed to take somebody with me, so she'd go out there with me. So then I get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and fortunately, my company took very good care of me financially. But my wife, have felt the need that she needed to start to do something, and we had bought fix and flips houses once we came out here. We started doing some fix and flips. Yeah. And the little town that I grew up in Canyon City is where we landed after my diagnosis. And so we started buying some homes there and fixing and flipping. And my wife didn't like the way that she was being treated by the real estate agents. So she said, I can go do that and do that better. So she went out and got her license.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward 3 years, she's breaking per capita records in the state of Colorado, in this little town in Colorado. And she's breaking records and making headlines in the Keller Williams Realty Company about all the great work she's doing. They end up making her a consultant to teach other people how to do what she's doing. And she did such a good job. She had massive clients around the world. One of those clients decides to hire her as the CEO. So my wife has gone from being my date to the CEO of a fairly large corporation 20 years after my diagnosis. So I am so proud of Elizabeth. And
that's a hell of a story. That really is.
She's a star.
There's I wrote down one quote from your book here. I just have to dig it up here. Right. So, and this stayed with me because, this doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. You were talking about physical therapy at the time and about how that changed from provider to provider, depending on who you got on a given day. And you ended that chapter by saying the quality of physical therapy is directly connected to where you live and who's on the schedule. And it costs to be disabled in America. What do you mean by that?
Okay. My legs don't work, but I can drive with hand controls. Mm-hmm. But I have to pay for those hand controls. And you don't just get them and put them in your car. They send you to a hospital to learn how to do this. And then you're tested. And then you're finally allowed to do it by yourself. This
all comes out of your own pocket.
Out of your own pocket. My last home, 3-story home. We had a chair, one of those chair lifts going from the bottom all the way to the top. Mm-hmm. So that cost probably $40,000. I had a lift to get me from my garage into my house, and another lift to get me from the kitchen down to the back porch. All of that about $100,000 worth of just being able to be me. Wow. So I can be a human being, all out of my own pocket. So it costs to be disabled in America. Then there's nothing you can do about it. It used to be you had tax breaks for all of these things.
Yeah.
But not now.
So you had one example that comes to mind when you were dealing with the phenomenon of foot drop. And that's a common thing for MS patients. You lose the ability to hold your ankle basically at a 90-degree angle. Your foot literally drops down. And to deal with this, there's a boot that you can buy that actually stimulates a certain muscle that allows the foot to stay up. That thing costs $6,000. And, it's not covered by insurance either. And it's that one purchase alone, I said, wow, if I had to buy that right now, how would I do that? And so what do? You just rack up your credit card bills and hope your 401k doesn't run out?
My wife is the person responsible for all the great things I had to live with in life. And one thing about that mechanism for the leg, when you go into the place and they show you how to put this on your leg, and they show you the little electrodes that need to go in the exact place on your leg.
Yeah.
Stimulate the muscle that's going to kick. Every time you go like this, it's going to go like that. Works real well in the office. But when you go home and you have to do it yourself.
Oh, I remember this. You described some of this. Yeah. Finding the exact spot must be a real bitch.
You can't. I mean, wow. So I used it maybe 3 times, that $6,000 unit, and you can't sell it to somebody else because it's a medical unit and you can't resell medical units.
Wow.
So I probably used it 3 times as, one of those things we tried. And so now I just drag my feet. Well, no, actually now I'm in a wheelchair most all the time. Gotcha. They tell you, and they told me in therapy that if you don't use your legs, you're going to lose them. So I'd go to therapy and I'd stand up and they'd have me walking back and forth. And then I'd get in my chair and I'd sit there for another week until I went back to therapy, and I'd get up and I'd walk around. Well, my wife and I decided that the easy way to remedy that was to engineer our own kitchens. I'm a cook. So we have built now that we've built 2 different kitchens in U shapes, so that I can start at one end, I can walk all the way around to the other, and then turn around and walk all the way back. But I've got my hands where I can hold to the sides. The cabinet's got to be 42 inches apart so that I can hold on, because I can't let go. If I let go, I fall.
So when you cook, you're doing it standing up. You're not doing it in the wheelchair.
Oh no, I cook.
Oh,
I'm standing up and then I lean on things to do my cooking and I
okay.
hold on and I really don't let go. I cannot let go because
So
if I
you
let
have a
go,
level of upright mobility. You just have to hold on.
I have to hold
You're
on.
not in the wheelchair all the time. You can actually get up and
I can
kind of move
stand up
around with help. I got you.
and grab things. That's how I get
Sure.
out of my car. So I get out of my car. Of course, I got hand controls, but I've got to get out of my car to get to the back to get the wheelchair.
Mhm.
So I get out. I close the door. I crawl along the side. I shuffle my legs behind me. I get to the back. I open the door, pull my wheelchair out,
Oh, wow.
and I take off.
So you're
And
independent in the car. You can do all that by yourself.
that's my wife has given me my independence.
Oh,
Whatever
that's awesome.
I have is because my wife has afforded me to do so.
Well, that's great. So let's talk about what you're doing today. So in addition to Come Get Me Mother, I'm Through, which you wrote 5, 6 years ago, you also wrote, and your part of your life now is you're a home chef, just like
Mhm.
me. You're probably better than me. And you also are writing. You're writing fiction. You wrote 2 novels. I dug up the covers from Amazon. The Death of Fairness, which you wrote in 2020, and these are novels, but that one is about the evaporation of what used to be called the Fairness Doctrine, which was an FCC rule that basically said broadcast stations had to be fair in presenting both sides of an issue, both sides of a campaign. That went away with deregulation, and this novel attempts to kind of chart what happens under that in the hands of essentially a bad guy. And then Bonnie's Law is another one. I didn't really get what that was about, but the cover art shows a young woman in a wheelchair, which, I figured that's got something to do with you.
Yes,
So
sir.
give us what is Bonnie's Law about?
These two books are about the 1987 veto that Ronald Reagan had of the Fairness in Broadcasting Act,
Okay.
which included the Fairness Doctrine,
Okay.
which was the simple rule that required equal time for contrasting points of view. If you heard someone lie on the radio, you had the right to go demand equal time to tell them, I want equal time to prove that person's a liar. When Ronald Reagan took that law away, what he actually did, first he said it was because it was against the rights given in the First Amendment, the right of free speech. But when you take the Fairness Doctrine away, what you've done is you've taken away my right to call a liar a liar.
Hmm.
So if you look at what happened in society after 1987,
Sure. You're
when you
talking about
didn't
like Rush Limbaugh and Alex, what's his
when,
name, and all those guys
absolutely,
who just went crazy.
and see where we are now in the division we have here, I point right at that act right there
Mm.
when he vetoed that act, and I'm just trying to get people to realize that this was a legislation that was in America that saved America. If we were normal people back then, they still have the Fairness Doctrine in Canada, and they're not divided like we are.
Yeah.
So that there is something for me. I just want to remind people that there was a time in America where we didn't have the division we had today, and it was because of that guy, Ronald Reagan, and you could always bring that legislation back. In fact, the Fairness Doctrine comes back up every 2 or 3 years, but there's one party who completely will not talk about it. They shove it away and they
Yeah.
won't discuss it. So the Fairness Doctrine is still out there, America. You could still stop the madness and call lies out when they're there if we ever brought the Fairness Doctrine back.
Yeah. Well, and some people are trying to do that, but our current president likes to sue people when he hears
Oh, yeah.
things he doesn't like. And, as I said, that's another whole podcast. So, in
You and I
addition
are on the
to
same.
your cooking, your writing, but you're also an advocate for MS patients. And
I'm on podcasts, men over 50 with multiple sclerosis. Of
mm,
course, now I'm 70, but I've been doing it for a while. And I try to be really upfront with people and tell them that, there are answers out there. I try to remind people that there are other drugs out there. If you're not taking a drug, please find one. And if it isn't working, there are other alternatives. I am what I consider to be a poster child for the success of modern science. I really felt I was going to die. And then the medicine change stopped all that. And it was strictly modern science that did that to me. So I try to remind people that you've got to understand that there is an alternative. If you've got MS and you're not happy with what's going on, get to your doctor and research some new outlets and some alternatives. And you can get saved. And I am one of those guys.
so tell me, where can we find you in cyberspace? You have a Facebook account, right?
I do, yeah, and I I don't recommend people go there. No, it's absolutely okay. I'm proud, and
Too late. I've already been there.
I have no problem having people see where I'm coming from. My website now is down because we made the change and the move from out there to here, and I'm deep into my third book on the topic of the fairness doctrine, and I want to start promoting that. So I've taken my website down for now. It'll be up in the next 30 days.
Okay.
So that will be under krcurry.com,
Right.
where I'll have all my book information, and you'll be able to find out where you can get them there. And I'll have updates on my next book coming soon.
Great. Well, I'm glad to say that you look great and you sound great, and I can certainly picture you as Kid Curry in your heyday in Miami. So, Kim, I really appreciate you being with me, and I wish you all the best.
Tom, it was a great time. Thank you for yours.
You bet.
This Kid Curry?
Kid Curry.
How old are you, Kid Curry?
Old enough to know and too young to resist, dear.
Oh,